What's up, y'all? It's GC Kinsey, here to share a somewhat unconventional perspective on trans visibility and talk about what it's like to try to live your truth in a world that isn't ready for it. This is the second of two videos I'm making in March for Trans Day of Visibility 2023, which happens on March 31st. Each one focuses on a different aspect of my personal experience with trans visibility. If you haven't seen the first video, you can watch it here, but either way, this video still makes sense on its own. Quick heads up, just like in the first video, in this one I'm going to be tackling some pretty heavy subjects related to trans visibility, which is a heavy enough subject on its own. But specifically, there will be discussions of gender dysphoria, misgendering, and transphobia. I do wrap things up on a positive note, but if this kind of subject matter isn't for you, I totally understand and I encourage you to check out some of my other videos. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. As a non-binary transmasculine person, I have some kind of unusual perspectives on trans visibility. And I know how lonely it can be if you think you're the only person who feels a certain way and no one else can relate, so I just wanted to share how I feel in case it helps any of you. Being visible as my authentic trans self is something that's extremely important to me and has also been extremely hard to achieve. By which I mean, even though I've been transitioning socially since the summer of 2017 and medically since the summer of 2022, I still get mistaken for a woman in the vast majority of interactions with any new people I meet. It doesn't matter how I present, whether it's more glamdrogynous or hardcore masculine. It doesn't matter that I wear my pronouns on my person 100% of the time. It doesn't matter how obvious I try to make it that I'm a transmasc NB, and believe me, I am not subtle. It all just seems to go right over people's heads. And to be clear, I don't mean this happens in the sense that people think I look trans but are still choosing to misgender me according to my assigned sex at birth anyway. I mean, I just straight up fail out of the gate. As in, it doesn't cross their minds that they might be misgendering me because I am not even a blip on their transometer. Somehow. And yes, I know that being on testosterone should eventually help with this, but I also know so many people who give off this undeniably queer trans vibe through their presentation with or without hormones, and I just wish someone would tell me what I have to do differently to be one of them. Like, what am I missing here? I've talked before in multiple videos on this channel about how the way others perceive you is outside of your control, and if they're not interpreting you correctly, it isn't your fault. But it is still really exhausting and disheartening when no one ever even comes close. In my other trans visibility video, I talked about how my social dysphoria stems from being seen as a woman, and that dysphoria is alleviated by being seen as anything else. But there's another layer to that I want to talk about here, which is that being seen as trans is an important aspect of how I experience gender euphoria. If I started getting perceived as a binary cisgender man on the other side of my medical transition, then yes, my gender dysphoria would be alleviated, but my gender euphoria would be gone too, especially if I were seen as a cis and straight man. I truly cannot imagine that. It would basically be like trading one restrictive, inaccurate gender box for another, and even if that helped with dysphoria, it would still massively suck. And I know a big part of why I feel this way is because I'm non-binary. My pronouns and my hormone profile and a lot of my other transition goals may look similar to that of a binary trans man, but I'm still very much undergoing an F to X transition, not an F to M transition, and that distinction is really important. That said, I'm pretty sure I would feel the exact same way about trading one ill-fitting gender box for another, even if I were a binary trans man rather than a transmasculine NB. Like, being seen as just one of the cishet bros on the other side of my transition would feel so weird and wrong to me as a very queer, very gay dude. And none of these feelings come close to reflecting what I hear from most of the rest of the trans community. I see way more people wanting to blend in as a cis person of their gender than wanting to be visibly trans. And even a lot of folks who are proudly out as trans and own their visibility still say they would choose to be cis if they could. This is most likely a safety thing, because being visible also means being vulnerable. Or a dysphoria thing, because being visibly trans can trigger dysphoria for some people. And I totally get all of that, I just can't relate on a personal level. Because after a lifetime of being perceived incorrectly and feeling like I had to pretend to be someone I wasn't, I crave living authentically and being seen in that authenticity above everything else. Like I said in the first video, realistically, I know that I never can be seen fully for who I am because society just isn't there yet. The best I can probably hope for is being seen as someone who's not a woman and is some flavor of queer, which isn't wrong, it's just far from the whole picture. But right now, even that feels like a distant pipe dream when most people still seem to think I'm a cis woman. One thing that helps with this is prioritizing my interactions with the people I know and see on a regular basis who do see me as trans over my interactions with random strangers who are just seeing whatever they want to see. But even then, I keep running into this strange and frustrating pattern where the people who know me seem to be able to perceive and affirm me as either a guy or a non-binary person, but not both. For example, some of the staff members at the doctor's offices and pharmacy and gym I go to were really nice and supportive about helping me update my records in their systems and switching to calling me GC and he and sir, but then they also did things like call me Mr. when I had requested to be called Mix, or couldn't understand why I needed a gender-neutral restroom instead of the men's room. And on the other side of the fence, I've had people I've met through cosplay and fandom spaces be super supportive about my transition, but also not understand why I use he, him instead of they, them, or why I would want testosterone when I'm non-binary. It's almost like people are expecting either a strictly binary man or a completely neutral androgynous non-binary person. So when they come across a non-binary trans dude like me, they just short circuit. What makes this so hard is that these people are clearly being supportive, but at the same time they're still sending the message, consciously or not, that I am just too much. I'm too complicated for them to understand. And that kind of hurts, honestly, because throughout my entire transition, I have done everything I can to make the whole thing as easy for others to digest as possible. That's actually why I always wear my pronouns. I don't want to confuse people. I just want to make things simple and clear. So when I keep running up against these little implications that who I am as a person is just too much, it's tough to know what to do. If I speak up, if I say, actually, it's Mix, not Mr., or actually, the men's room doesn't work for me, I need a gender-neutral one, or I'm not a they, please call me he, does that make me come across like a jerk who's throwing these people's support back in their faces like it's not good enough? On the other hand, if I don't speak up, I know these kinds of situations aren't going to get better. Plus, it feels like a missed opportunity because if these people are already supportive, then they're more likely to be receptive if I do say something. But it's still such a hard call to make, and I hate to admit this, but many times I've either chickened out or just given up on saying anything. Yeah, I know. When you're not seen authentically by most people, when you're made to feel like you're too much even by the people who do know and support you, and when you feel like the odd one out within the broader trans community because of your weird perspectives on visibility, that can start to mess with you. It almost feels like being told you shouldn't exist, and you'll always have to compromise or erase parts of yourself in the vast majority of your life. That can be a really hopeless and lonely feeling. So how do you deal with it? How do you balance the need to live an unapologetically and visibly authentic life with the way the world works? Here are 3 things I've learned to do. Number 1, I allow myself to be vulnerable with my support system. My closest friends, my chosen family, the people in my life who do see me for everything I am and don't think I'm too much, and if y'all are watching this, you know who you are. They are truly a lifeline when the rest of the world has me feeling down. I'm one of those super independent people who hates feeling like I'm burdening others with my problems, but the connections I've fostered with my support system over time have let me know that I'm not a burden and I can be open with them when I need to be. So I do that, and I take refuge in the fact that I have these amazing people in my life. And I reciprocate. I try my best to give back that same level of support in return. If you don't have that kind of chosen family or a solid support system, it does take a lot of time and effort to build one. It's not the kind of thing that falls into your lap overnight. But I can say from personal experience that it is 100% worth investing that time and effort, especially if you're a queer person who feels unusual or different even within the queer community like I do. For people like us, a good support system is life-changing. Number 2. I find ways to be authentic through art. As you might know if you spent any time on this channel, I'm a musician, I'm a cosplayer, I'm a drag artist, and I love combining all of these art forms together. And I also do a whole bunch of other creative things like writing, drawing, photography, videography, and more. And just like most artists do, I express my authentic self through art in ways that I can't in my day-to-day life. Whether I'm writing a song to get my feelings out, or doing a photo shoot to showcase a cosplay that gives me gender euphoria, or even making vlogs like this one, I'm channeling my authentic self into my work, and it is immensely helpful. I think everyone can benefit from creative pursuits, even if you don't feel like you have a creative enough personality or a good enough skill set. There is still so much value in expressing yourself through art that you should just do it anyway. You don't have to share it with anyone, just the act of creating itself can relieve a lot of stress and boost your mood. But if you do want to share it, please put it out there, because what you create could resonate really strongly with someone else. Number 3. I work toward building a visibly authentic life, one small step at a time. When my emotions are in a downtrodden place because I'm still struggling to live that visibly authentic life, I stop and think about all the little things I'm doing to remedy that. Obviously, testosterone is an important one, and that makes it somewhat easier to deal with getting mistaken for a cis woman yet again every time I go out. But some other steps include things like getting and maintaining a gender-affirming haircut, continuing with my voice training, and transitioning my wardrobe along with the rest of me, and reaping the benefits of the gender euphoria I get from showing all those changes on this channel. I also practice being more assertive when I can work up the nerve to do so. For example, reminding the nurses at the doctor's office that I'm a mix and not a mister, or mutuals online that I'm a he and not a they, little things like that. Practicing when I can helps me build up the confidence to stand up for myself in more situations over time. And now that I've shared those tips, this is where I want to turn the conversation over to you. What does visibility mean to you, and how do you feel about it? How do you strike a balance between living authentically versus being part of a society that may not understand you? If visibility and authenticity are things you struggle with as much as I do, what advice do you have to make life easier? What questions do you have about all this? Drop a comment below and let's get a discussion going. And this is a touchy and difficult subject, so if you could keep the comment section respectful, that would be awesome. You can also reach out to me on other social media. I am GC Kinsey across all platforms. And while you're here, feel free to check out some of my other videos. I have more vlogs like this one about my experiences as a queer person. I've got cosplay music videos, makeup demos, pre and post testosterone voice recordings, and more right here on this channel. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything new. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. I hope you're able to live your truth with as little or as much visibility as you want, and I will see you on the next one.